Welcome, this is Carrie Schell from On Point Quilter. In this tutorial, we are going to take an antique quilt that I found on the Quilt Index, identify the main block, and draft it using EQ8, and then we will set it in a layout. To get started, I went to the Quilt Index, which has a phenomenal collection of photos of old quilts. And I found one that was part of the Minnesota Quilt Project that was made between 1901 and 1929. So I'm going to click on that, and the full record shows a photo. It's not a fabulous photo, but I do like the quilt. If I scroll down, I can learn some additional information like the width and the height. It's listed at 83 by 70. So I'm going to right click on the photo, and I'm going to do a save image as, and I'm just going to label this one Minnesota and select save. So now I've opened Electric Quilt, and I'm going to go to the image work table and select import, and I'm going to navigate to my EQ8 images and see if I can find the one entitled Minnesota and select open. And I'm going to go ahead and add this to the project sketchbook. I spent some time looking at this, trying to decide what the block was. I did decide that each of the blocks probably had 2/4 sections of a Dresden plate. And so there are 3 blades to each of those quarter sections. So I'm going to select crop, and I am going to roughly crop one of the blocks. And I'm actually going outside the edges of the block. I'm going to select Apply Crop. I'll select Fit in Window, and then I'm going to do a second crop that is much more precise. And so I'm picking up those 3 blades and part of this circle in the center. And I will select Apply Crop. And then I'm going to select Add to Sketchbook. So now I'm going to view my project sketchbook. And in the photos, I'm going to take the block and I'm going to select Edit to Block Work Table. Now, under the tracing image, Position and Resize, you'll notice that the block doesn't fill my square space. I'm going to select Distort Fit, and that's going to allow that to fit, and it's going to be a little bit easier to trace the image. Now I'm going to go to Drawing Tools, and I'm going to do a new block, Pieced Easy Draw, and I need to decide my snap settings. So I'm going to use a block width and height of 12. I'm going to set my snaps to the 1/2 inch, so that would be 24 by 24, twice the block size. And for my graph paper, I'm going to turn that on and set that to 12 by 12. And I'm going to start with just snap to grid. Now I'm going to zoom in on the upper corner of the block. And I'm going to use the arc tool, and I'm going to draw an arc at 5 inches. And that's going to be the outside of the Dresden points. I'm going to do another one at 4 inches, which will be the inside of the Dresden points, and then a third one at 2 inches, which will be for the circle. Now I'm going to select the outer arc with the Edit tool, and I need to come up with the appropriate number divisions. Now we can see there are 2 full triangles and 2 half triangles, which tells me that I want to use stagger segment. And I'm going to select 3, and the 3 basically means 2 fulls and 2 halves. And so I'm going to select that larger arc and select Apply. For the next one, there are going to be 3 even segments. So I'm going to select partition segment, change that to 3, and select apply. And for that smallest circle, I'm going to do a partition segment 3 as well. Now I'm going to turn off Snap to Grid and turn on Snap to Node. I will then select the line tool and connect up the nodes. And everything looks like it snaps. I'm going to go ahead and turn off the Hide Show Image for tracing so I can just see what I have drawn. And at this point, I'm going to add this to the project sketchbook. And then I will take the Pick tool and drag a box that will fully enclose everything that I've drawn. And I'm going to select Clone, Rotate 180. And under my snapping options, I'm going to change this to Snap to Grid only. And I'm going to do a Fit to Work table, move that to the lower right corner, and then I'm going to zoom in on that lower right corner and double check that things are snapping in position. And this is a little tricky because we have so many things that are snapping to nodes. But I think that looks pretty good, and I'm just going to even zoom in really close on just one of the nodes to double check that it is snapping. Then I can zoom back out and I can go to the Color tab. The reason I did the preliminary add to Sketchbook was if there was a problem with this second segment and the line segments weren't touching the edge of the block, I could view my project sketchbook and go back to that early version and repeat the cloning and rotation and placement process. And now I'm going to go back to the Draw tab because in my blades I really don't want that middle circle. So with my Pick tool, I'm going to select each of those elements and select Delete, and I'm going to take that from both of those arc segments. Now I can go ahead and color this, and I have a fabric collection from Wyndham Fabrics called Uppercase Volume 2, and I decided to use that for coloring. And I can hide show quilt patch lines to see if I like the way that looks, and I can add this to the project sketchbook. Now I'm going to go to the quilt work table, and I'm going to do a new quilt horizontal. And I will go to the Layout tab, and I'm going to change my number of blocks to 4 by 6. And I'm going to make sure keep width and height are equal, and I'm not quite sure on the size, but I'm going to start with 12 inches, and so I will change one of those dimensions and it will change both. And then I'm going to go to the Border tab, delete that border, go to the Design tab, and I'm going to use Block Tools, Set Block, and I'm going to find that block that I just drafted. And with the Control or Command key, I'm going to select one of the spaces in the quilt. Now I'm going to use the Alt or the Options key with Rotate and select the second block space in the quilt. And that's going to rotate every other block. And now that is the center of my quilt. So I'm going to add this to the project sketchbook. For additional tips and techniques, please subscribe to my weekly newsletter at www.onpointquilter.com. And while you are there, check out the soon-to-be-released book, EQ8 Drawing Blocks.